again. Oh, hey there, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. We don't jump guns here on FS1. Big show today. Antonio Brown is stirring up new drama with Big Ben. Wait till you hear. Speaking of drama, Magic Johnson had a whole lot to say about the Lakers' mess. But we got to start with the Western Conference Finals because they're over.
My buddy just texted me and said, thinking about guns, holler, holler.
Holler? Is everybody happy?
Another.
Warriors trying to finish off the Blazers in Game 4, and they did just that. They trailed by as many as 17 in this one. They came all the way back, and Draymond Green from long did it. Damian Lillard tried from long. He could not. The Warriors are moving on after a sweep of the Western Conference Finals, heading to the NBA Finals for the 5th straight year. Here's Steph Curry after the game.
We don't take anything for granted. Every single night, especially when you get to the playoffs, there's a hunger about us, and whether we win or lose, you know, we take pride in how we play. And you know, 5 straight finals and the historic nature of what that is kind of crazy to think about. We want to enjoy it. We know 4 more wins defines your season, winning a championship, so got to stay locked in.
All right, there's a lot to get to with this team and how they did it and how they did it without certain people. But let's start, Nick, with you. How incredible is this Warriors run now? 5 straight NBA Finals appearances.
Say that again, Jenna.
5 in a row, they got to the NBA Finals.
The odds are, if you're watching this show, you've never seen a team do it. You had to be alive in the 50s to the 60s and be watching basketball when basketball was barely on television. Maybe for our oldest viewers, they heard of a team doing this. Russell Celtics. And Russell Celtics did it in the era where they only had to win 1 series each time to get to the NBA Finals. There's only 8 teams in the whole league. They got to buy into the conference finals each year, so they had to win 4 playoff games to make their 10 straight NBA Finals. They only had to win 11 total series in that 10-year run when they made 10 straight NBA Finals to get there. The Warriors, what they're doing here is totally unprecedented. We're numb to it because we expected it from Golden State and because we kept hearing about, over the last decade, LeBron's 8 straight finals as an individual. But that's a different story here. LeBron, as great as he is, I do not believe he would have made 8 straight had he stayed in Miami. That team aged out of it. The wear and tear of 4 straight finals runs was incredibly apparent in that 4th year. And LeBron left to go to Cleveland, start a new streak. We have seen some of the greatest teams ever. The Celtics of the 80s, when Larry Bird won 3 straight NBA MVPs. They made it to 4 straight and then got knocked out in the conference finals, going for their 5th straight. The Lakers, with Magic and Kareem, they made 9 NBA finals. Magic did over his lifetime with the Lakers, 8 of them with Kareem. But they could never make it to more than 4 in a row. They got knocked out in 5 games in the conference finals the year they were going for their 5th in a row. What the Warriors are doing has not been done in modern NBA history, and there's so much noise surrounding them. There's Durant, there's Draymond, the future, Steph, who's the best Warrior? And this series, once they got past Houston, it felt something like a fait accompli, like we knew they were going to beat Portland, that we didn't. Yesterday, I realized we didn't even mention on the show. With a win, the Warriors will do something that has not been done in over 50 years and has never been done in the modern NBA. That's what they did last night.
It's really special. And you can go from top to bottom, from the organization. We don't talk about the ownership. We don't talk about their commitment to excellence, which is putting all this talent together. They took a chance with Steph Curry. They had to make a decision on him a number of years ago and decided, yes, we are going to, even though he's got bad ankles, he's undersized, he could be one of the best shooters ever. It wasn't then, we knew. So what they did there, their investment in Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's battled some health problems. But even last night, it just showed me from top to bottom, they're the best in sports, if not the best that we've ever seen. You talked about the time. Like, I was just barely alive. I can't lie and say I was watching.
No, of course.
Like, this is not something that you're going to see, and it's special from the top to the bottom. And last night, to me, Steve Kerr just proved to me what a good coach he is, because you can't play basketball like that with the number of reserves that they're playing with and have the type of flow, continuity, everyone knowing what they're supposed to do, unless you are coaching those guys that we have been saying all year, oh man, they don't have a bench. Well, their bench is not good as it used to be, because they used to have people like David West, Iguodala coming off the bench, Sean Livingston was younger then.
Barbosa in the beginning.
They had a number of guys, but to me, it came all together last night. This 5-year run they've been on is very, very special. I think Steve Kerr is really underrated, and you can see that how he empowers guys to be able to play their role. There wasn't one guy that came off that bench, and they played 11 guys early, that was confused with what they were supposed to do, and they had the skill, the basketball IQ, and the talent to be able to do that. This has been very, very impressive. The most impressive thing that I've seen since the Michael Jordan era, when Michael won, took a break, and then came back and won again.
It's incredibly impressive if you take the macro look. If you take the micro look, it's even more impressive. They trailed by double digits in how many games in this series?
They trailed by 17 points in games 2, 3, and 4. Last night, late in the third quarter, they trailed by 17.
17 points. They did it with no Boogie in this series. They did it with no Iggy last night, and they won 4 straight games in the Western Conference Finals with no Kevin Durant.
And I think that's a really important point, because when we were talking about the Warriors this season, were they going to be able to do something going into the season we knew hadn't been done in 50-plus years? What were the possible reasons they wouldn't do it? Well, sometimes teams just get sick of each other. It's what happened to Shaq and Kobe. Got sick of each other. 2 weeks into the season, Draymond and KD are barking at each other on the bench. We saw that potential separation. Would they have enough depth? There were real questions about their bench all year. Boogie goes down in round 1. KD goes down in round 2, in a round 2 series against a team that had built their entire identity around trying to beat the Warriors. There were so many exit ramps for them to get to this point. Now, there weren't many in the Western Conference Finals, so it felt like if the series had been reversed, if they played Portland last round and Houston this round, I think it maybe would be more celebrated. People would understand the significance of it more, because there would have been more suspense over whether
they also would have gotten through Houston without Kevin Durant the whole series.
Sure, absolutely. And doing it without Kevin Durant, sweeping the Blazers, coming back on a desperate Blazers team. Again, they were down 15 at the half of Game 2, down 13 at the half of Game 3, and down 17 with 1:45 left in the third quarter of Game 4, and they won all 3 of those games. The Blazers led for more minutes in this series than the Warriors did, and they could not win a single game.
Yeah, it was impressive. It was very impressive, and they have what very few teams have. And I'm talking about the greatest teams in basketball, and that's the ability to be able to come back from any deficit. And to me, that's a skill. People might say, well, maybe it shows their lack of attention to detail and stuff early. Well, I don't know what it shows early, but I know at the end of the game, where the score is more important than it is at halftime, then the Warriors have that ability that regardless of what happened, they can lock in for a quarter, for a half, and hit you with all different types of offense. But the one thing that won't be talked about in this 5 years, they have always been an elite defense. And without Kevin Durant, surprising as is, their offense might be a little bit better. Defensively, they are back on to being the Warriors, and that's how they won last night's game.
And see, your point about being able to come back from any deficit at any point, teams like this across sports have a psychological edge that they impose on their opponents. I remember watching some of your Vikings teams, particularly once Moss got there and paired with you. There was an element of, man, these guys can score from anywhere. And you could see how it affected defensive game plans. You could see how it opened up running lanes for Robert Smith, because you could be on your own 20 and they were afraid. The Blazers were up 17. And were not comfortable. The Blazers were up 17, and they were the more anxious team. That's what a 5-year track record of beating people over the head buys you, is that teams can't play their best even when they're playing their best, because they're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
All right, there's no word yet on when Kevin Durant will return. The big question of whether this team is better off without him in the lineup or not, that annoying question. Vincent Goodwill will be out here. We'll talk about that coming up, and so much more in this game. Big game by Steph, by the way.
Oh, my God.
But coming up, talk some football. Why is Big Ben apologizing to Antonio Brown? That's next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We will be right back.